Astral Wind, one of the best guild launchers in the game, is a launcher that any guild player can benefit from using. That being said, as a top 250 guildmate, here's my guide on how to master and use Astral Wind effectively. Alright, so an important part of Astral Wind that should be talked about before anything else is the launcher modifiers. The launcher modifiers that work on Astral Wind are Stratus and Cloudstones, Rush and Drift Shards, Perfect and Crystal Lenses, and Vibrant Gems. Starting with Stratus and Cloudstones, these modifiers slow down the casting and hit speed of Astral Wind, increasing the hitbox as well. However, compared to the Rush Shard and base variant of Astral Wind, I do not recommend using Stratus Stones or Cloudstones on Astral Wind. By slowing down the speed of Astral Wind, you are making it much easier to react to. Some people say that the slowness of this version of Astral Wind works as a mix-up. However, after the first use of the slow Astral Wind, no good player is going to be caught off guard by it. Additionally, the hitbox increase is usually not enough to outweigh these downsides. For these reasons, I recommend not using Cloud Stratus Stones on Astral Wind. Next we have Rush and Drift Shards, which is the modifier that I highly recommend everyone uses on Astral Wind. Using Rush and Drift Shards significantly increases the cast and hit speed of Astral Wind, and in doing so turns Astral Wind into one of the most unique launchers in the game, and I'll get into why that is later. By boosting the speed of Astral Wind, it makes it much harder to react to, decreasing the amount of time your opponent has to parry in order to protect themselves from Astral's damage. Additionally, by increasing the speed of Astral Wind becomes a powerful mix-up, being faster than most medium and all heavy weapons. These benefits all increase the amount of effective use cases for Astral Wind many times over, so I highly recommend you use Rush Shards on Astral Wind. Finally, as for the Perfect Lenses and Vibrant Gems, it's unclear what they actually do. If they affect Astral Wind at all, their impact is likely so minimal that it is not worth the increased ether cost from using these modifiers. Now, let's get into the effective use cases of Astral Wind, which are the situations where Astral Wind is going to be powerful and beneficial to you. Also, it should be noted that these are assuming that you're using at least 3 Rush Shards on Astral Wind, which you really should be, as I attempted to make clear in the modifier section. Okay, so the first use case, and one of the most obvious ones, is in combos. Astral Wind is a very high damaging and very quick Gale mantra, making it quite effective in combos. It's very good to use after M1ing your opponent, as it's hard to parry during hit stun. One thing to be aware of though, is that Astral Wind should be used at the end of combos, since although it is possible to combo extend after Astral Wind hits, it's very hard due to your opponent being flinged in the air. The next use case I would like to mention is using Astral Wind as a roll catcher. Astral Wind is particularly strong as a roll catcher due to its multi-hit mechanic. Oftentimes, even if your opponent dodges Astral Wind, they'll still be hit by at least some of its ticks of damage. Also, its speed can often line up correctly so that if you M1 feint into Astral Wind when someone's parry cooldown is on, you can bait their roll without actually proccing it, leaving your opponent vulnerable to your Astral Wind if they are not able to block fast enough. Now, my next use case is one that takes a lot of skill and practice to use correctly, but can be extremely powerful if done right. This use case is using Astral Wind as a prediction/adaptation tool. What I mean by this is that since Astral Wind is fast enough, if you can notice patterns in your opponent's gameplay and predict right when they will attack, you can use Astral Wind very powerfully to counter that attack. This is something strong and unique to Astral Wind with Rush Shards, since with other quick monsters like Radiant Kick, they are simply not fast enough, and they don't give you iframes like Astral Wind does, which allows you to predict most attacks and even M1s reliably, and counter them effectively. This is a very strong and underrated way to use Astral Wind. However, it takes being able to read your opponent accurately and reacting quickly, so mastering this skill can become difficult. A simple use case of Astral Wind is in parry trades. While guard breaks like Fire Blade, Ice Smash, and Champion's Roll Throw are often mix-ups by being slower than your normal swing speed, Astral Wind acts on the opposite end, usually being faster than your swing speed if you're on a medium or heavy weapon. So when you're in a parry trade, instead of swinging, you can simply throw out an Astral Wind and it will often hit. One last important use case I'd like to mention is using Astral Wind to negate fall damage. This is really just an important tech that every guild user should know, that'll probably be helpful at some point in your Deepwoken playtime. Alright, so from all of this, at the very least you can see that Astral Wind has many effective use cases, and this makes it a very strong guild mantra. However, there are a couple noteworthy drawbacks to be aware of. One downside to Astral Wind is that you have to be able to aim it, which can be difficult in fast-paced fights. It doesn't have any hitbox behind you like monsters such as Strong Left, so it takes a little bit of skill to use through having to aim it. Real shock, I know, but it's worth noting. Another downside comes from the flinging from Astral Wind. The flinging is usually not very helpful because, as mentioned earlier, it's pretty hard to combo extend off of it. Some players try to combo with the flinging by using wind step and doing something while the opponent is in the air, but these combos are hard to land and counterable by good players. Okay, so that's basically everything you need to know to master Astral Wind. Let me know if you have any questions, and be sure to subscribe for more Top Guild content. See you in the next one.